I simulated Roth and traditional IRAs for these 3 different incomes in order to see which is better. A common question people ask when it comes to retirement accounts is which is better, a Roth or traditional IRA? In my opinion, the answers to this aren't that great, and they aren't backed up by any good information. So I decided to take the matters into my own hands and simulate 3 different situations myself. This video assumes you have a basic understanding of IRAs, taxes, investing, but don't worry, if you don't, you can still look at the graphs, the pretty graphs, and enjoy the analysis of these graphs. When you think of someone running a Roth or traditional IRA simulation, usually it's them just throwing some numbers into a compound interest calculator. But that is not what's going to go on here. We're going to be going in depth on the data, the taxes, the investments, and figuring out once and for all which is better. So let's start off with some assumptions we're going to have going into these simulations. First, we have a few tax-related assumptions. First, we're assuming single filers. We're not going to go into married or dual filers. Next, we're going to use the tax brackets for 2024, and those are going to increase with the rate of inflation. In the same boat, standard deduction will also increase with the rate of inflation and will start at the 2024 standard deduction. Next, for investment return and inflation-related assumptions, we're going to assume a 3% rate of inflation. We might, in the future, make some changes to this value and see what happens. We're going to assume a 10% not inflation-adjusted rate of return on retirement accounts. Another assumption that we have is that 75% of the post-tax income is going to go towards expenses, or in other words, saving 25%. Any extra cash after expenses and after putting in money into the IRA will grow with the rate of inflation. For our IRA-related assumptions, IRA contributions will increase by $500 every 5 years. We're going to start at the 2024 limit of $7,000. We are not going to look at catch-up contributions, and we're going to assume a full contribution if it's possible for the income. The 3 incomes we're going to use are $20,800, $75,000, and $138,000. The reason that we're using these is the first one is about $10 an hour if you work 40 hours a week. The second one is the median household income. And the last is the maximum single income for contributing to a Roth. The simulation will happen over 30 years. We're going to switch up the order a little bit. We'll start with the medium income, then do the high income, and then finally the low income. Let's start with the middle simulation. As I mentioned before, this is the medium household income. This means that the majority of households in America have this income. This can include 2 incomes from spouses, but we'll just assume it's a single filer. When we look at the account balance of the Roth and the traditional accounts, one thing you can see is that the Roth and traditional IRA accounts have the same balance. This is because they have the same contribution limits. So if you can contribute the maximum amount, which you can in the medium case, they'll be the same. The total difference between the balances of these 2 simulations is $86,647. In these next sets of tax graphs, we can see that the amount of taxes paid over time is different. This is because the income that we put into the traditional IRA is tax deductible, or in other words, no tax is paid on it. The total difference is $54,450. So what do we get from this? Going with the traditional IRA can give you an additional $86,000 to play with in straight-up cash, but keep in mind that the traditional IRA funds are still taxable, and pulling out too much too quickly can make that $86,000 positive turn into the negative. Next, let's look at the high income simulation. This is the maximum income for a single person before they can't contribute to a Roth anymore. The Roth and traditional account balances for the high income situation are interesting. The income is so high that the cash account balance is actually higher than the IRA account balance. If we look at the exponential curve though, it looks like in 5 years or so, the 10% rate of return on the IRA will overcome the cash account. The total difference between the balances of these 2 simulations is $94,524. When I first saw this next result, I was shocked. The difference in taxes paid between the traditional and Roth for the high income simulation is $59,400, about $5,000 over the amount we paid in the median income simulation. What? How is this possible? Turns out there's only a 2% difference in tax brackets for the $75,000 income and the $138,000 income. Don't misunderstand this though. The higher income still paid way more taxes than the middle income. about $1 million taxes paid compared to $400,000 in taxes paid. It's just the difference between the Roth and traditional and their respective simulations were similar. This makes me think that if you're at a higher income, the downside to investing in a Roth and getting taxed slightly more may not be a problem, since you'll have that money tax-free in the future. Finally, let's look at the low income simulation. This income is if someone makes about $10 an hour. With this income, it's obviously a bit different than the other two, because the IRA contribution limit is 1/3 of the total gross income. This is before taxes. And I think this is the most interesting out of the three simulations. The first thing to notice is that we weren't able to max out the IRA. Compared to the high and medium simulations, we have a $209,946 difference in end balances of the IRA accounts. And still, this person's a millionaire. Looking deeper into it, we can see that there's very little cash saved up. This is because every penny went towards investing in the IRAs. That is until the income surpassed the point where some of it could be saved into a cash account. For the Roth, it took a little bit longer than the traditional IRA because a little bit of the money from investing in the traditional IRA was deducted from taxes. This could have been further invested into the traditional IRA, but that would require some recursive calculations. And I'm not so sure the juice is worth the squeeze to find out how much of your deducted income can be put into the traditional IRA in that case. The total difference between the balances of these two simulations is $35,331. The difference in taxes paid is actually very interesting. It's the biggest percentage difference we've seen so far, but a small actual difference of $22,763. It's incredible that a person making $10 an hour pays about $1,000 a year in taxes. I honestly would have thought it would have been more than that. But it's even more incredible seeing someone paying only $225 a year in taxes in the case of the traditional IRA. In the low income case, we can see even somebody making a little money can invest and save a ton of money in the long term. And that Roth should be the go-to. Let's do a quick review and pick whether a Roth or traditional IRA is better for each situation. For low income, there's a difference of $35,331. I think this is a clear Roth choice because there is so little cash outside of the retirement accounts. For middle income, there's a difference of $86,647. This is also a clear Roth choice in my opinion. For a high income, there was a difference of $94,524. I think the Roth also makes sense here. One thing to keep in mind is that these choices were made based on the cash earning with the rate of inflation. After doing all of these simulations, I'm wondering how much of an impact it would have if this cash was invested like the IRAs were, earning about 10% year over year. I'll be doing that video next. Once I'm done with it, it'll appear on the screen here if you want to watch that video too. Let me know in the comments down below what other factors you'd like to be included in these simulations. If you're interested in data and simulation-based financial videos, which I assume you are if you watched all the way here, then go ahead and subscribe.